I recently embarked on a quest, a mission to recreate the owlbear. Now, this is a monster that I've always thought was a underwhelming goofball, but I did concoct something, and much to my surprise, it turned out to be, I think, one of the best monsters that I've ever created. Now, if you've been following my monster ranking videos, you've probably heard me hating on the owlbears quite a bit. It's half in jest. I actually do like them. Cooked medium rare with a side of gnome brains. In fact, as of recording this video right now, the owlbear is the lowest rated monster of all of my monster ranking videos. It received a 1 in mechanics for having nothing but basic attacks, 2 in style for being just a plain owl head on a plain bear body, a 1 in role-playing, as it does not socially interact with the characters, just being essentially a savage animal, a 2 in lore, as its lore is vague, limited, provides very little in terms of story hooks, and a 2 in versatility, because it's a one-track behavior predator beast with just slight variations in the cases that it's featured as maybe a trained guard monster. So yes, overall I think it is pretty underwhelming. So why is there so much love for the owlbear? Why do people come to defend his honor? Where does this affection stem from? Well, it's not due to any kind of story or character. Owlbears aren't like giants or dragons or hags, that they have lots of interesting characters. There are connections and even ages-old mythological connections to them, so there's nothing there to work with. I've never heard anyone speaking with excitement about the official lore of the owlbear, as the lore is just a vague, maybe wizards created them with some kind of magical experiment, or maybe they originated in the Feywild. I've also never heard anybody praise the combat mechanics of the owlbear. Well, maybe a bit in 4th edition. Actually, they had a cool stunning screech then. But in 5th edition, in 3rd edition, in prior editions, they're just basic claw and bite attacks and a plain vanilla bag of hit points. There's nothing to get excited about. So that just leaves us with the monster's aesthetics, which I do believe, this is my theory, people love the owlbear because of its style and its tone and kind of what it represents. There is some kind of potential held in there. Now, if we want to be realistic, it's just an owl head on a grizzly bear body. It'd be easy to get cynical and to call that dumb or lazy, but many mythological creatures are combinations of 2 or more animals. The chimera comes to mind. Nobody scoffs at that one. Also, people do like owls. They think they're cute or they're cool, and in fact, the owl is one of my favorite animals. And how many times have you seen some cute owl product or some owl artwork? But what I think explains this even more is that the owlbear has a sort of awkwardness. You know, it's a misfit, and we identify with that on some level. We lovers of RPGs sometimes feel like we're in this mixed up place that's somewhere between fantasy and reality. So I think the owlbear captures some of that. So my quest was to take these elements of the owlbear, to take this kind of glimpse of great potential, and to try to do something with that and make a monster that is really fun mechanically, but also really compelling lore-wise. So let's jump into the stat block here. First, I knew I wanted to increase the challenge rating just a little bit so I could make it stand out more from regular grizzly bears and get it on par with something more like a troll. You can still use it in low-level play, but it's going to present a bit more danger. I knew I also wanted it to fly. I also think that gives it more of a magical beast feeling, and owls flying is one of the greatest things that they possess. I just like that look better with having wings on it. I kept it at a lowish armor class, a decent but not a gigantic amount of hit points. I didn't increase its ability scores all too much, just tinkered with them ever so slightly. I gave it expertise and perception because on the bear side of things, bears have incredibly good senses of smell, and on the owl side, owls have very keen vision and hearing. I gave it damage resistance to thunder. That's going to make sense when we get to its screech attack. It has 120 feet of dark vision, again, hearkening to how owls can see incredibly well in the darkness. For a language, it has hoots, screeches, roars, and here or there, a pained attempt at malformed words in common. Now, I get that there's a bit of humor in this, that's intentional, but it's gonna connect with something in the lore later on, so bear with me there. Now we get to what I consider the really interesting stuff, eldritch reactions. Again, this is connecting with the lore. I really tried to go farther with that idea that the owlbears were created by magical experiments and there are lingering, strange, supernatural things inside of them. So the first time an owlbear takes damage in a round, there's an unstable surge of arcane energy. The DM will roll a d8 to determine one of the effects. Now, there are 8 effects, but the DM doesn't have to memorize any of these effects. You just roll the d8 and just look to the corresponding one and apply the effect. So there's a lot, but in practice, nothing is overly complex here. So what are the Eldritch reaction effects? The first one, exploding eyes. The owlbear's eyes swell and they burst. It takes 2d6 damage and is blinded until the end of its next turn, at which point new eyes magically regrow. 2, scattering feathers. The feathers burst out from the owlbear. Until the end of its next turn, it can't fly, but attacks against it have disadvantage as there's this cloud of feathers and fluff all around it. 3, violent spasm. The owlbear takes 2d6 damage, and it can use its reaction to make a beak attack. 4, mad rage. Until the end of the owlbear's next turn, it has advantage on all melee attacks, and all attacks made against it have advantage. Sort of a berserk there. 5, extending limbs. The owlbear's body contorts and stretches, and until the end of its next turn, its melee reach increases by 5 feet. It can dash as a bonus action, and it does not provoke opportunity attacks when it moves out of an enemy's reach. 6, awful gas. A powerful stench emanates from the owlbear. Creatures within 10 feet of it must make a DC 15 con save. On a fail, the creature gets incapacitated until the end of its next turn. Owlbears and creatures immune to poison specifically are not affected by this. 7, elemental pellet. The owlbear coughs up an owl pellet, which crackles and a random type of mephit bursts out of it. The mephit rolls up initiative, and it is the owlbear's ally. It will stay up to an hour or until it or the owlbear gets killed. 8, erupting screech. The owlbear ends the following conditions that are currently affecting it: charmed, frightened, incapacitated, paralyzed, prone, restrained, stunned, unconscious. Shattering screech, we'll get to that in a second. Shattering screech recharges and the owlbear uses it immediately, no action required. So you can see from 1 to 8, these effects go from detrimental to the owlbear all the way up to a really potent benefit to the owlbear. It just happens once per round when it gets hit. So it's going to add some interesting variety and strange effects that are going to really spice up the combat encounter. I kept its claws and its beak attacks. They're really not much stronger at all to the version in the monster manual. The only real difference is that they grapple the targets that they grab onto with their claws, and the beak attacks are made at advantage against a creature that the owlbear is grappling, but the damage is not too much higher, even though it's 2 CR higher. And the cherry on top is the shattering screech ability. It recharges on a 5 or a 6. The owlbear lets out a screech in a 30-foot cone. All the creatures in that area make con saves. On a failed save, they take 66 thunder damage, and half of the potions that they are carrying are destroyed. They're determined randomly. So again, this is a spice up effect. I think it's a unique effect. There's not too many things in 5th edition that do this sort of thing. Maybe a rust monster can damage weapons and armor. But I like the idea of the thundering screech, shattering glass, but also affecting magical solutions, as there is this strange arcane surges emanating out of the owlbear. If a creature succeeds on the save, it takes half of the amount of damage and only 1 random potion it's carrying is destroyed. Feathers and fur, claws and cunning, a creature of flesh and of the arcane, hunting, swooping, preying, screeching with urges beyond bestial hunger. After this, I developed some owlbear lore, which I think is more compelling and gives some interesting story hooks, something that's going to actually apply to the in-game role-playing and storytelling. Owls and bears are both apex predators in their own realms, so a combination of the two was bound to produce a beast of consummate killing prowess. Or was it? As with many ideas, the concept and the reality can turn out to be quite different. The wizard who created the first owlbears was Egar Zygag. Or was it Veluvia the Spindly? Or perhaps it was Thelquasior the Lesser. Whoever it was, the infusion of arcane energy meant to provide the owlbears with supernatural capability ended up causing a slew of unpredictable effects. Wild animals and wild magic. Who dares try to tame such forces? Only the owlbears themselves know who their true creator was and why their genesis was such a mishap. If one listens as an owlbear snarls and screeches, it also strains to speak in the common tongue. The words are mispronounced, the grammar is awful, but the effort to express is there. Throughout the centuries, only a rare few individuals have beheld the truth of this chopped speech. If one manages to survive an owlbear attack, and somehow calm the savage beast, find a way to communicate with it, the owlbear reveals a great truth. Under their uncontrollable ferocity and arcane surges, owlbears are tormented by a lack of purpose and direction. They are outcast, both by animals and by mortals. Their minds are too crude to reach full sentience, yet complex enough to possess a certain level of awareness. Their suffering drives them, as it does most all people, yet they know not why they suffer nor what to do about it. A person of sufficient resolve and skill can converse with the owlbear. He who leads the owlbear through this incredible moment witnesses a breakthrough. The owlbear discovers its capability to speak. Though much less refined in communication than a typical person, the owlbear finds the direction it seeks. It then tells the secret of its kind's creation and takes on the alignment of the person who led it to this transformation. So I find this lore a lot more compelling. Not only does it take it farther with the idea of wizards did it, but it actually gives some specific names. There's an Easter egg in there that you might have caught with the first name. And there's also that juicy bit to follow that locked inside of the owlbears is the secret of who actually created them and why things went so terribly wrong during their creation. Then there's the other side of maybe the player characters care about this. Maybe they don't want to just slaughter the owlbears. Even if the owlbears ambush them, maybe they see something, a bigger picture, and they want to use skills or use magic or whatever they have at their disposal to get the owlbear calmed down or maybe even subdued, and maybe someone can talk to it. Again, there could be some kind of magical ability that facilitates this, like a Speak with Animals spell. If someone can get the owlbear just to let go, or if someone can get the owlbear to overcome, at least momentarily, this terrible ferocity and chaos that's running through it, it will confide in the person. It will have an epiphany and then confide in the person the secret of the owlbear's origin. And it will then bond with this character to some degree, is seeing the character as maybe a figure or a template. It will take on the alignment of that character, and thus the owlbear will go on to do perhaps something. It's going to be something more than just a big dumb brute animal that does roar, jump out of the bushes, I'm trying to eat you. So I hope that you have enjoyed my recreation of the owlbear here. I will go ahead and post this for free on my Patreon. I'll put a link to the page, to the post right down in the video description. Go check that out. You can download, it'll just be a 2-page PDF. You can run this Esperian variety of the owlbear in your home games. If you do, leave me a comment. Please let me know how the combat encounter turned out, and I'll be curious to see if it actually led to a role-playing sequence or a further adventure arc after the initial combat encounter. So that's all I have for now. Be looking out for some more videos coming up from me soon. This is Esper wishing you all the best, and may your adventures be many.